An announcement has been paid for by the Celtic World Order.
Hello, good evening, and welcome back to Celtic World Order. I am always Steve O'Matt, and tonight it's a privilege to be joined by two familiar faces. First bottom below me for a change rather than alongside me is a guy he's my bearded brother. He's became something of my right-hand man. It's Paddy boy, Paddy Maguire. And up top and immediately to my side is another familiar face. It's my house comet. He's my spirit animal of the Celtic podcasting world, the punk duck warlord and Canada's favourite Tim. He is Mr. Liam Greenlaw. And he's also, fun fact, the man that was responsible for some of these wee logos that you see kicking about. So, beautiful, mate. Love it. Great to have the two of you here. As we says, fixtures are announced. It came a wee bit early and we're going to get into that. But before I do, I just want to know, guys, how you doing, Liam? It's been a while, eh?
Aye, no bad. I mean, I've not seen you since I think we just talked about the Rangers game and that was it. But
yeah,
another game in between then. Doing great. Sunny day here in Vancouver, and just glad to be on another podcast talking Celtic. So it's great to see you again, Steve, and watching. It's been good. I've been enjoying them.
Good. And yourself, Paddy, as well, mate. Listen, it's a regular occurrence, isn't it? You happy to squeeze another one in late this night?
Always, mate. Always.
Lovely stuff. Well, as it says before we crack on, there is always, I know, there's the wee bit of housekeeping that we have to do, but let's get it out the way. As we always say, right at the moment, Celtic World Order, our operation is small, but there's always some welcome room for some rapid expansion. So if you want to support the channel, you know what to do. It only takes 2 seconds and we will greatly appreciate it. If you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. That way, every time we put out some content, you will get notified. If you like what we're doing, you like what you're seeing and hearing, get a wee thumbs up. If you want to go a wee bit extra mile, go a bit crazy and help us get that reach out there, you can share the content. If you want to connect elsewhere, of course, Twitter, formerly, or now should I say, X, we are at CWPod1888, and you'll have me and Paddy's handles in there as well if you want to add us and listen to our guff when we're talking not on the podcast. And, of course, there's the final one, which is old school, is Facebook. I know, we've still got it, and it's at Celtic World Order Podcast. So that's it. That's all that sort of formalities out the way. As we said, there's a lot to talk about because we got a wee surprise breaking bit of news earlier on in the day, and that was those post-split fixtures that we were all anticipating, we were all waiting for. But the wait is over, and it's pretty clear, isn't it? We know where we stand, we know who we're up against, when it's been played, times it's been played. The path is clear. The task has been set. Can we do it? Well, we're going to talk about it. But before we do, Liam, welcome back. As he says, it has been a while since we last spoke, and we were talking just before the Rangers game. A lot's happened, is it not, between now and then? You know, we took care of business with that win against St Mirren, and of course, well, there was a surprise party in the Highlands. So I just want to give you a wee moment to talk about that yourself. How have you been finding ourselves since we last spoke? And albeit as well, the shock result.
Well, you know, I was worried about us in the first half of that game. We didn't look like we'd fallen back into a slump, just like Rangers did when playing Ross County. I think they suffered the same thing. The difference is we were managed to go on in half time and get out of it and come in and score some goals. They didn't. So for me, that's the story of this weekend, is that we were able to turn it around at half time. Either that was through Rodgers, the players themselves, whoever it was that turned it around, because when we came out in that second half, we looked dominant. We looked like, we had been reminded of exactly what we were playing for. When Rangers came out in the second half up in Dingwall, they didn't have a clue. They're still celebrating for last week. They think they just had to show up and they'd already win. So think that's the story this weekend for me. So does that make that happy? Aye, getting 2 points across where, you played a very poor first half, and I don't know. I think we did. I think that showed me a lot of character in the team, which I had been questioning a lot lately on, other podcasts, and it was coming across negative in that as well, because I felt like we were struggling, and that second half gave me optimism. So
Yeah.
yeah,
No.
so we're clicking at the right time,
Absolutely, as we say, I just want to, as I said, I don't want to tread too much old water, but me and Paddy were talking about that game. It was a game of two halves, wasn't it? There was a lot there, but there were certainly some guys that came to the fore, and as we said, it's all about character, it's all about mentality. There was a few guys that showed that, and certainly one of, a guy that's close to your heart, and Alistair Johnson. What is it with him lately, Liam? Has he had a crossing transplant or something? Because he's picking folk out left, right, and centre, wasn't it? What a performance!
I thought Ali played really well. He looks like he's building an understanding with Kuhn. Now there's like timing's such a big thing on this Celtic team, and he looks like he's got that timing back of when to make the run, when to hold back, when to feed Kuhn, when Kuhn's going to go in. And I think that's helping him as well. He's getting into better positions where he can cross the ball, and he's beating his first man now. And now that he's doing that, that opens up. Even Kyogo. Kyogo's never been weak in the air. He's able to hang there Larson style and find space. And I think more of those balls coming in for that is good. And then we need it happening for the other side as well. And it just shows you that when we use the wings and we do use that as a channel to get balls into the that's when we're dangerous. That's when we'll score goals. The rest of the way is trying to walk into the goal doesn't work.
Yeah, as I says, we were talking about that and saying, you mentioned Kyogo, Paddy and I were talking the other night, and we says about how Kyogo was just on the periphery of the game in the first half, and it was all this standing about. If you noticed, like, when he's coming into the game a wee bit more and he's dropping back and he's been involved in an initial build-up of the play, we're getting a wee bit more sort of purchase. Is that something that you're expecting, as we say, there's some big games that we'll get into coming up? Do we need everybody pulling in the same direction and getting involved in all aspects of the play? There's no room for passengers or luxury players at this stage, is there?
No, and I think that's why Kyogo right now, it's like even just like as the games get more difficult now, everybody's playing for more right now at the end of the season. Your players need to be turned on more. They need to be tuned in so that they're spotting their runs at Kyogo. Now's the time of the season. He's been running their runs all year. And so we should have been able to build up to start recognising and seeing some of them. So I'm hoping that this is the fact that when now players are more engaged in the game, more at stake, and more dialed in, right? Like, no time for passengers, but no time for casualness. And, casualness causes casualties. And we see what's happening when our players turn off. Guys, when Yang and that. And, still think he turned off a wee bit as well when he played on... Saturday.
We said that it wasn't fantastic.
You think he'd be tracking back by now? He must have got a bollocking, right? But no, he still seems a bit hesitant to get wired in and realise it. That's unacceptable. Not for 1 second, and we're done.
And finally, super subs again. We talk about guys contributing. They came on. There was a link up, all involved. Palma, Bernardo. Ida, he's finishing it. Are you liking again what you're seeing in Big Ida? We spoke about him previously, the Rangers game. He pops up with a goal there. And of course, there we go. He's done it again. I think he's about 7 goals now, isn't he?
Another Ida.
That'll do for me.
Good. I talked with Phil on Friday, on the Friday feeling on the bus. We were talking as well. Ida, he's getting into that. He's starting to look like more like a Giamakis type sub that we had that could always come on and score us a goal and find a way just to get the ball in the net, either through somebody's mistake or, an absolute worldie. He seems like he can score goals with any part of his body, and that's a good thing from any part of the inside the box. So, I'm hoping that he's really enjoying time at Celtic. And he's enjoying the fact at this stage in his career where, he was sitting on the bench down south that he sees himself now as a valuable substitute that can come on and help us win a title.
Yeah, 100%.
That for with him, whether he stays with us or not. This will be
Well,
good to be a winner, you know.
Aye. Well, Paddy, we're not forgot you're there, my friend, who says I've got to catch up with, my brother here up the top. He's been a while since we've talked, but we're talking about these guys, and we touched on it the other night, and we've now seen the fixtures, and we'll start to break them down. You and I were talking about that quality, the depth on the bench, and certainly that's going to be important as we look at these fixtures. There is tough fixtures, top six. Listen, teams are there on merit. Are you expecting us to do much in the way of sort of mixing it up? You were big calling out for the likes of Adamida to get a start. At the first two games, were awaited in these. The first one, for example, that, as we know, that's going to be a physical game. It's going to be tough. Do you think Rodgers, he should be thinking about, rotating these sort of positions for the run-in, playing, certain players to fit the team they're against, or just keep it going? If the sun's no broke, don't try to fix it?
I do agree with if something's not broke, don't fix it. But yeah, you're right. I would love to see Big Adam start up front. He's coming on, he's scoring goals. I think if he had gave him the 60 minutes and gave Kyogo 30, I think you'd see a different animal for Kyogo as well. And Liam touched on something there. When we play fast, when we get the balls into the box, when we're not trying to walk it into the back of the net, everything that's coming through is coming through Hatate, and it moves a lot faster. So when we're getting the ball down the wings, the first balls into the box, like AJ was doing, that's when we're scoring our goals. That's when we're at our best. Do you know what I mean? I'd like to see more of that. I would like to see the first time crosses into the box when you don't need to think about it and you don't need to try and do the hard stuff, really. I'd like to see just the quick football again. Because that's where we seem to thrive. As for squad rotation, we've got the players there to do it. So I would like to see your guys like Bernardo maybe getting a wee shot in there as well, and Iwata, and then obviously if McGregor's fit, get McGregor back in, give him some minutes. Ideally, we're just kind of building these guys up towards the third game and the split, aren't we? We're trying to get a full squad back for that. So.
Well, that's it. So it's all about trying to build up. And there you go. Patrick McLaughlin comes in. We've been waxing lyrical, as I say, about Rio Hatate, and we sort of alluded to that point. Do you feel and agree very much with what Paddy's saying there? Do you think that he is the key, and he's a guy that's going to be kicking on guys like Kyogo? We all spoke about trying to find those runs, trying to make those passes that are, sometimes a wee bit beyond what we've had before. Is that combination, do you think that's going to be telling in the fullness of time for this season, Paddy, to wear them back and the two of them in the squad?
Aye, 100%. Having Hatate in there for me, like we've spoke about it so many times, everything comes through him. Everything's quicker. We just play so much better when he's in the squad. And he just gives you that option. If it's not all firing down the wings, he's got the option to go through the middle. He's got the eye for a pass. And yeah, I totally agree. Kyogo will come good. The wee man, like you say, it's looked as if he's kind of switched off. He's not really been getting involved in the play. But you know what you're going to get with him. You know if you give him a ball in that kind of area, he's going to put it in the back of the net.
Absolutely, and that's what we need. So anyway, let's have a wee look at the fixtures, shall we, guys? And we'll break them down, and we can see if there's any that particularly stand out, what we think of them. So in case you haven't seen it, in case you've been sleeping or under a rock somewhere since this broke, the fixtures are out, and they're quite simple. So I'll go through them. Firstly, date and time. I'll tell you what the Celtics are, tell you what Rangers are, because let's face it, they're the only fixtures really that matter, isn't it? And they're ultimately the ones that could have a big deciding factor on it. So we start off our first awaited indeed. That'll be on the 28th of April. That's a Sunday and it's a standard. What a 3 o'clock kickoff. Quite interesting there, though, is on the same day, Rangers kick off early. They are 12:30 and they are away to St Mirren. So there's a toughie straight away for them, I would say. We move on, second being the 4th of May. Celtic, we're ahead this week. We play before them and we are at home to Hearts, a team that we've had some difficulties with in all fronts in it. It's not been some great results against them. But equally, Rangers have a tough visit on the Sunday. They've got Kelly coming to Ibrox. It would have been better if it was on that plastic pitch, but hey, you know, we don't make those fixtures, do we? Apparently it's that random generator machine, but there you go. Saturday the 11th, that was the one that we were all waiting for, wasn't it? We were sort of predicting, we thought it would be fixture 1, fixture 2. I'm not going to lie, I'm a wee bit surprised that it finds itself somewhere in the middle with so much in the balance, less to do with it being a deciding factor, but more thinking external things like policing and all that kind of nonsense. And then, of course, we move on. There's a midweek fixture. The Rangers, they play before us again. They're on the Tuesday, the 14th, and they're at home to Dundee, who they've got tomorrow up on the tractor field. And the next day, we've got arguably a right toughie, similar to Hearts, a team that we have been really struggling to find form against, and we are on that pitch. It's Killie away. And on the final day, both teams kick off. It's at 12:30. They'll be hoping for a helicopter Sunday. I'll be hoping that it doesn't matter what goes down on that day, as we find ourselves again at home to St Mirren with Rangers away to Hearts. I'm sure Hearts will be fully up for that one. Anyway, we'll start off with yourself, Paddy. You know, other than the Glasgow derby, is there any fixture there from our side that really whets your appetite that you think is going to be a cracker or maybe a struggle?
The struggle for me stands out straight away, and you touched on it, Steve-O. It's at Killie. That park is horrible. We do struggle on it. Our previous results will show that. But I feel, obviously, after the Glasgow derby, when we scud them, we'll be going into it on a high. And I think it'll be relatively easy for us. I think we'll go in there and prove us all wrong and put a performance in on that park. The other one that stands out, could be a decent one, is obviously Hearts. We know they're going to be up for it. Baby Rangers, let's call them that.
That's that.
So, yeah, we know they're going to be up for it. Their big striker is one of them, and he's always willing to give it a go against them.
He's caused us problems this season. We can't deny that. So, yeah, absolutely. As I say, it's 2 fixtures there that stick out. In terms of coming over to yourself, Liam, are you sharing that sentiment? Are you feeling it's a decent run-in? Or it could have been better? Is there any things that if you were given the choice to switch it around that you would do?
No, I think it's perfect. I think it leads us into a winning season. So you got your first game against Dundee. I think that's great to play against them because there's a chance for us to go out and show our intent. Right? We should be they're the last in, we're the top team. We should be able to roll over them and just get the side settled and show that the intention that we're in a title race here and we're not taking the foot off the pedal. So I hope us coming out with the same energy we came out with the second half last week against St Mirren. The 3 hard games at the lot. I mean, they're all hard games, but Rangers, I think a lot of people have been very overly optimistic that we can beat them there. You know, let's see what sort of referee we get in that as well, and just see how it goes. I'm more concerned about the impact of the refereeing in the next 5 games. You know, as we've seen with some of the highlights that come out after Rangers game in the weekend, there was still stuff that they were getting away with that no other team would have. I mean, that Connor Goldson handball, that was unbelievably. You know, it was right there. It was like, how can they not catch that? Because again, they don't want, you know, you don't see what you don't want to believe. You know, and that's
immunity returns, doesn't it?
Yeah.
After the surprise penalty.
Yeah, and so anyway, we'll see what sort of assistance that they get, which is the word of the year, refereeing assistance, patterns of assistance. And I think Killie and Hearts know how to exploit their weaknesses. And I think that's what we have to address. You know, so we know they're going to, right now, I think all our injuries have came to the left side. And I thought we were already starting weak at that point. So when Maeda gone, you're losing some of that defensiveness up front. We've still got Greg Taylor. We know where his deficiencies are. I've went on about them for ages.
Yep.
Hatate just seems to be that one peg there. That's the highlight there. That's hopefully going to bring it all together. And now we're not sure who's going to be behind Hatate, partner, Cameron Carter-Vickers. So those two games trouble me because I think they both have clever coaches and clever players that are not intimidated by Celtic, know that they can beat them. And I always see, Shanklin. Shanklin always deliberately, any free kicks, anything. He looks to see where Greg Taylor is and tries to get in and about him. And that's where we had last time when we lost points this year. It was both times where people trapping Greg Taylor in between Joe Hart and one of their opposing players, and he didn't have the strength to move him out. And Joe Hart, I don't know, I guess he was causing a foul. Didn't want to cause a foul with that, and didn't want to try and move him. And it cost us a couple of goals. Yeah. So I'm hoping that we've got enough presence now with CCV back that doesn't become a problem for us. That all the right guys are on their right guys at their target man. That Shanklin isn't standing by himself in the corner, the 18-yard box, ready to head it that way. Right, Taylor marking. So that's what we have to be really, really clever.
Aye. That's the thing. You point out, as does Paddy, we'll highlight those two games. The two games that are really, as I said, Rangers will be what will be. That should take care of itself. We've never had really any issue getting up for that. The Hearts results have been quite strange. All right, we saw the disaster in terms of the VAR and things like that at the last game against them, and that certainly derailed us before we even got going. But Paddy, obviously we're talking about Rodgers says this is the time when we come alive and this is when we kick on. Do you think, as well as just, looking to get over the line and knowing the task in hand, do you think that when we've hit this period of form that, Celtic should be, if there's ever a reason to get up for it against Hearts and Killie, as we say, two teams that for whatever reason they've given us the hardest time this season, is there extra added incentive there to go out and prove a point? Is that a monkey that's on our back with both those teams that we really need to shake off? And, how do we go about that? Because, they're going to be fired up for it. There's really not too much to play for in terms of them position-wise and what it's worth to them financially. But, is it pretty straightforward for ourselves? Are we going to kick on and do what we need to do against these? You got the confidence for that?
Of course I have. As Brendan says, we're coming into this. We've done this before. We've been in this situation many times, and this is where we come alive. So I'm fully confident that what does he even need to do? If you're a manager, you shouldn't have to go in there in the last 6 games and G-Day players up for it. They're professional footballers. They're winners. They know what it means to win. These guys have won this previously. They want to win trophies. Hatate touched on it the other day. Like you said, he wants to be here. He wants to win titles with Celtic. These are the players that you have around the club. You shouldn't have to go in there and say anything to them. You just go out and go, guys, go do your job. And these guys will go out there against, like you say, your Dundee first game of the season. Liam touched on it. Not first game of the season, sorry. First game of the split. They're going to go out there and you've got to make what do you call it, like a statement here. You've got to go in there and give that. I want that to be a 4 or a 5-0. I want that to be a marker to say, listen, we're still here and we're coming for you. And then that puts it down to Hearts. I want Hearts going into that going, oh, wait a minute, they put 5 by Dundee the other day there. What are we in for?
Yeah. I mean, see as well, see me touch on Dundee. Obviously, there's a big question mark over the game that's going to be played there tomorrow. There's certainly going to be question marks over that pitch for the rest of it. Is that just looking at that fixture, we've kind of maybe pushed that one off to the side. If you get any concerns over the playability of that pitch and that creating its own issues again?
Good weather's coming in, isn't it? Next week's supposed to be nice, so hopefully it'll dry out to a kind of.
That'll be it. It'll just, is that a Scottish sun will dry it right out? It'll be soft. It's as simple as that, isn't it?
It'll be good to soft, I think. Do you know what I mean? If I was it'd be all right for running horses on.
Well, it certainly looks like there's been some horses running over it anyway. But no, as I said, Dundee, we touched on them all right. We demolished them at Celtic Park, but they're another team that are very well organised, isn't it? The top 6 maybe brings in some surprises, your Killies, St Mirren and Dundee, but what they've all got in common is that they're very well drilled by managers with players, let's be honest, that they're not as spoiled with Richie's the most talented guys in the world, are they? But, as I say, the first one over the line, Dundee, do you think that, what do you take for that? Is that going to be one that could be a potential banana skin? I mean, certainly we're hoping it's going to be for Rangers tomorrow.
Hope so for them, yeah. Like you touched on, we'd spoke about it previously as well. I'm hoping Dundee turn up tomorrow on the Tatty Field and put a shift in against them. When we play them, obviously, I think we've got enough in the tank to do what we've done previously. Yeah, it's a different park and everything else, but I still reckon we should go there and overturn them. I give them a good doing. I would imagine that. So, I'd expect it. I wouldn't imagine it. I'd expect it.
Aye, and same with yourself, Liam. As I said, obviously you've sort of just don't want to overlabour the Dundee factor, but as I say, there is question marks over this pitch. Obviously, the backup contingency plan is going to be McDermott Park for the game tomorrow night. That could certainly potentially kick itself on, and it could even affect ourselves. Is this just another nonsense distraction that's maybe at the back of your mind that we don't need to get into this post-split fixtures, wondering if we're going to turn up and even play?
I mean, Scottish football, innit? It's like Babylon. So you never know what's going to happen. If you can think the most amateur, unprofessional approach to solving a problem, that would be off the charts. I mean, or off the books. No, you'd be wrong, because we like an unusual approach. I don't know. I mean, fucking hate Scottish football when we've got a park like that at this day and age. I'm hoping the game tomorrow night for them is just. I just hope it gets pure agricultural. I just hope the Hammers let's just start having a go at each other and Rangers know they're in a game, because I think their discipline is delicate right now. I think their whole mindset is so fractured right now and so fragile that a game that gets sort of, one of games, Scottish football games, mud everywhere, you're sliding into tackles, the boots getting put in, you're playing against a lot of Scottish boys as well that growing up with Rangers and see themselves as I should have been playing for them or that, and you never know what the mindset is. So I'm hoping tomorrow night is just like get tore into each other.
Yeah.
And you pick up the crumbs, It's us.
Well, as I said, obviously we're on tonight simply around the fixtures, but I just want to dive into that a wee bit, because tomorrow, let's face it, I think whether that was a game that there's been a lot of drama and it's been put off and it's been a bit of an embarrassment for the Scottish game, as we say, we probably were looking at that with one eye and thinking not too much off it. But as you rightly say there, Liam, after that shock result against Ross County, and they seem really, really deflated. Paddy and I'll continue to say, a big thing for me is always about the mentality of players, the mental strength, the capacity, basically having the cojones, isn't it, to get yourself over the line. And we spoke about, and you had sort of alluded it to a wee bit there, about that sort of mindset. It's interesting, as we've heard since the game at the weekend. I don't know if you've been certainly listening to the way that our manager's been talking. We said the other night there about how Rodgers, folk might say ego, they might say overconfident. To me, it's a guy that's comfortable in his skin. He believes in his system. He believes in his players. But then you look at them and you start to hear all the strange quips that's coming out their manager. And he does say about, it's not an excuse. We're not saying it as an excuse, but perhaps there was a lot going on with this game being put off and around the Scottish game and external factors that maybe got into our head. But I'm not using it as an excuse. So, what does that say about maybe where they are? You'd like to think, or their fans would like to think, a wounded animal is going to be up for it. A wounded bear's going to be angry. But is it a case of a wounded bear is, falling away mentally fragile?
Wounded bear is a noisy bear. A bear that can't stop talking. A bear that keeps getting themselves into more and more trouble. I mean, you just listen to some of his press conferences now where he's talking about the player's mind being on the Dundee game. Why is it on the Dundee game? You're in Dingwall, you're playing Ross County. What you're saying is like, you get tickets for Taylor Swift on the Wednesday night. You want to know and get your week sorted out. I don't understand how you just don't show up and play your football when you play football. So he's already making excuses for him. And if you read through the lines, he's very much like Beale. He's made a lot of excuses for a lot of different things that normally we wouldn't pick up on. But yeah, he thinks it's a conspiracy against him and that. And so he's setting up a defeatist attitude. And I think that whole moral victory that they had last Sunday just goes to show you right now that for their mindset, they're just happy to be in a title race. I don't think they realistically think they can win it. They're in it, but I don't think they're like. You've got guys that are like, martial arts, guys that are going through the board, guys that are crossing through the finish line. Our players have that. We've still got a lot of players in our squad that know how to win a championship. We know how to win that, including their manager. Their manager, not so much.
Well, the term that Paddy used, and it's quite a strong one, but I think certainly you wouldn't be told off for using it. Was that the side is littered with serial losers. They might have great statistics, they might have 2 trophies and a couple of things everywhere, but when it comes down to the crunch, we do seem to have the guys that have been there, they've done it. We've got the manager that's been there, he's done it, and that's going to put us in mental strength and put us ahead of the curve. I think, Paddy's Liam's saying about these weird quips and all that, and we talk about the ketchup bottle, and sometimes it all comes out at once. There's a ketchup bottle after Sunday and then get into potentially tomorrow, let alone the game against us. Is the ketchup bottle empty now? Is that it?
Oh, aye. Toys are out of the pram, aren't they? What was it he said as well about the Dundee game? He'd said about, obviously, now Dundee, it doesn't really matter to Dundee, this game. This was his latest press conference. I don't know if you'd seen it, but he said if they'd have played them when the fixture was due, that Dundee would have had to essentially get the points to make top 6, so they'd have been more up for the game. And he's reckoning now that Dundee don't really have to do anything, they just need to come out and play the game. So the pressure's essentially on them, I think, is what he was trying to get across. But I don't know what the guy's all about. He's have touched on it. He's taken the Deludamol tablets the same as his fans. He's becoming one of them. He's believing his own trash. It really is. He's becoming one of the guys that he's told so many people that this is going to happen and that's going to happen, and now it's coming back to bite him in the arse, and it's not. He's not there anymore. He's deluded as far as I'm concerned.
What I think's interesting about that there, Paddy, as you say, isn't it, is worth bringing up, because that fixture should have been played before the split. As we see how things have panned out, there is that notion, I'll come to yourself with that, Liam, there is that notion that, it's feet up, boys, job done, Dundee are in the top. Do you think that's something that's do you think they will have that attitude there, or excuse me, or do you think that Dundee, with all this nonsense and the talk about them being unprofessional and an embarrassment to the game and all the garbage that's been thrown at them, do you think that's just enough of a wee needle to get Dundee right up for that game that's hopefully going to result in either drop points or 2 drop points or a complete loss that's going to certainly swing it well in our favour? But, you think about that, take the other side of it, is it worked out well for us that Dundee have won that got into the top 6? Would you have preferred Dundee to the alternative options we could have had?
I prefer them to Hibernian, aye. But I think Dundee, they've got their whole team talk against them planned out now. There's been so much shit thrown their way about unprofessionalism and all that sort of stuff coming for Rangers. And this isn't a bunch of foreigners that you have to get up and motivate to play Rangers. Dundee's still pretty much a Scottish team and a Scottish manager. So I think that's your team talk. It's like all these foreign prima donnas and all that coming in and, having a go at us for our pitch and this and that. And, and so I think that's your team talk there. It's like, let's just go out and show them, you know what? You might be over here playing in Scotland. You might be getting paid playing for Rangers, getting, compensated far more than what you should have. But this is the SPFL, and you know what? Go out there and kick the shit out of them. Play good, best of football, But show them what it's like on a Wednesday night in Dundee,
Well, the thing is, it goes back to that one. It's maybe unfashionable to say, if you can't take the points, maybe they'll take some bodies, eh?
Well, but I think that's I think it's about pride for them, and it's about professional pride. and the amount of mud that they've had slung at them all, month,
Literally.
and all that, no pun intended.
No, exactly.
It's time to fling some back, And I think as well, taking a couple of points off them and making it not about Rangers, but about Dundee, this gives them a great opportunity. And, and then by the time it comes to us, we'll just scalp them. And, I'm hoping it's all done before they get to Celtic Park. I think they're so fragile right now that this is it. It's all going to happen at early doors here. I think it'll not go to the end of the season. I think it'll be done early because it's all mental stuff now, and I think they're going to collapse. But they're already shown signs.
Well, let's have a look at that then, because we've got to get back to the fixtures and the point in hand. So, we're hoping, of course, as we've just said there, we're hoping that, Dundee are right up for it because of everything that's went before it. But if they do get through that game, as Dundee over to us, as Paddy's rightly said, we're at a stage now where we've kicked on. We've already kicked their backside, albeit at Celtic Park, and you would expect that to keep on happening. So you're saying, Liam, that you would like to think that it would be done and dusted, or as near as, with them having dropped points before playing us. So look at their two fixtures there. Their first one's an early kick-off away at St Mirren, and then following that with a home match against Killie. Out of those two, Liam, do you see, I know given this mental state and their fragility at the moment, but do you particularly believe in any of those two fixtures or those two teams that if it's not going to be Dundee, any of the two that are likely to take the points?
I mean, Kelly's always in with a shout against them, but I think St Mirren, I was watching St Mirren that first half. I mean, St Mirren organised themselves very, very well. They're a well-organised team, and I think that can give Rangers problems because the longer it goes with them not scoring and not being ahead, the more the fans are going to get on their back. And I think St Mirren's the sort of team that could just practically play it out, play it tight as you can until they start getting nervous, and then hopefully just jump on their mistakes. I mean, St Mirren always looks a good team. They look good up against us. There was a few shots and stuff that they had in target in the first half that could have gave us trouble. I mean, I know they had the wind, and the wind played a big part, but I've always liked him, and I've always liked Mark O'Hara at centre back. I think he's coming back into a good game. So I think that's the one that they could lose right off the front. I think all the pressure for them is now at the front. I don't think they're going to come in and coast these games. I think there'll be two very difficult games for them, and then the whole thing as well, like knowing that they've got us at home, that's enough that they're going to be looking at every yellow card, every suspension, everything. Just win that game.
We'll touch on to that. Paddy, I want to talk to yourself about the game before we play them. Obviously, Liam's hoping that he thinks St Mirren, certainly what we saw with them at Celtic Park, I thought they gave, and we discussed, they gave a good account of themselves. They did cause some trouble, there was some flash balls in their box and things like that. As I said there the other day, right place, right time. Maybe it's a different story. Fortunately for us, it doesn't. So there is St Mirren, I would say, on their own patch. It's a great pitch they've got, slightly smaller surface. That might play into their favour, but it's all about ourselves, let's be honest, and it's about what we can do, and we can take the reins and control ourselves. The game before we play Rangers, now let's be honest here, we all pretty much put it down to, if all goes according to plan and we keep continuing to win our games, we'll go into that way 1 point ahead. Hopefully it'll be more, but if we then dispatch them, it's 4 points with 2 to play, puts you in a great position, does it not? But as we say, we've got some really difficult games coming up, and the one before them, and the day before Rangers fixture is us at home to Hearts. As we said earlier, a team that have caused us some real trouble. They've been a thorn on our side, and it's one that we really need to get off our back. Talking about putting down a marker, talking about growing in confidence, and talking about maybe scaring them a bit. If we go and dispatch Hearts, because let's face it, they're looking at our fixture list as well, that's probably a game that they expect us to drop points in before we play them, is it not?
Aye, they'll be looking at it that way. What's the words like? Kind of wondering eyes, really. They'll be keeping an eye on it anyway, hoping that Hearts do them a wee favour. Can I see them doing it in front of 60,000 at Celtic Park? Nah, I can't. They're a decent enough side, yeah. They will cause us problems, but I think we've got enough in the tank, and we're coming together. We're starting to play as we know we can. We've got the belief. Our manager's done it previously. We keep touching on these points, and it's just the stars are aligning. You spoke about the St Mirren game there. I think this is time for Quan to show how good a Celtic player he really is and lay them to the sword. It would be as if it's written in the stars for the wee man to get a goal there, is it?
Would you sign him up for an extra 5-year contract if he was able to actually do some damage?
100%,
Just to have him about for a favour.
10-year contract, then put him back out to St Mirren.
No, that's the thing. Hearts is going to be huge, isn't it, Liam? As I say, that's a game that's a statement win, isn't it? It's a team that they're going to be playing at the weekend. And, again, we talk about fragility. Let's see how they get on during the week. But getting into that game, you're talking about St Mirren. Wouldn't it be sweet if they were also knocked out a cup before that? Do you think it all starts to unravel?
Oh, definitely starts unraveling at that point. I mean, do you listen to any of the phone-ins this week? I had to go on Clyde's just to hear the carnage. Wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be, but there was some absolute fucking troglodytes on there shouting the odds. And you absolutely love it. It's going to be hard for them. And Hearts, I don't know. It comes down to belief. If Hearts really believe they're a team, Shanklin, did he make the right decision staying with Hearts when he could be playing with Rangers? So maybe he wants to show them something as well too. This would be the right time to show it, and it would definitely, I think it would derail their season because, they're talking about trebles awful early, So you always want to see them get that that sort of attitude. You want to see some payback for that as well, and I shout out about trebles and stuff. So that would be a great way just to sort of burst that bubble completely. And I said the mental, it's another trophy they've lost. Somebody put something on X this week that the only person that lost more trophies to Celtic than Tavernier was John Gregg, and that was there like an extra 12 years or something like that,
Yeah.
For the club. So it's just another trophy they didn't win. And just to get them out there early, I think that would be great. And watch another good day in Glasgow, except for the Police,
That's it. Well, as he says, listen, the fixtures are stacking up, and we look towards. Let's just touch basically on the Rangers game. Why not? That's ultimately. Do you still think? I know you've both alluded to that. You think that there's going to be points dropped, or at least hoped points drop before that game. We go into that, Liam. Is that it? Is that the one? Is that the one that for you, no matter what happens before, we put it to bed that day with 2 to spare? Because let's face it, if you do, we'd have to drop points in both those games. Yes, Killie away could be a banana skin, but last day of the season, if you beat Rangers and you've got St Mirren at home, you've got to be hoping that trophy's sitting in the back waiting to come out, isn't it?
It's all about momentum right now. Whoever can get the best momentum going and keep it going is the team that's just going to get right through the finish line. And momentum as well. I think there's an opportunity. I think that goal Hatate last week was absolutely brilliant. It reminded me of Luka Modric. And if I was a Celtic training like the trainers right now, I'd have Hatate clockwork oranged up to a screen right now, just videos of Luka Modric. And I'm hoping just the way players get hot and players build on confidence and all that goal in that game, that second half particularly, is going to give Hatate enough to get on to sort of like, okay, we've been waiting for this day for you to come back. We've been waiting for you to get fit, and we've waiting to see you build your confidence back up. Okay, all those things are there right now. Now, give us a big finish to the season. Make it about you. Just like Matt O'Reilly got hot November, December, make it so that, when the Japanese team is talking, pitching the players, he's one of the first persons considered. That here's a chance that, okay, you signed your contract last year, but let's get every single player talking about Rio Hatate. I think that's the sort of management I hope we're getting for Brendan Rodgers right now. That is the sort of big flourish. That is a big finish that we're going to have this season. That he's going to command from that position, and he's going to start dictating the game more creatively, bringing more players into it, getting the ball moving faster, getting our wingers more engaged, scoring their goals. That's what we want. That's what we promised with Rio Hatate. And I think that's the momentum that will carry the rest of the team over to the finish line. And I think if we get that and we build it out, no matter who else drops in or out of the squad, let that be the narrative and the story, and we just all get better by having our star player back. And Diogo getting better, and McGregor, I wish we could find a place for Iwata. I think he's still a good player,
Certainly a great option to have, isn't he? Barry, he fell out the game against Rangers a wee bit, but I also felt that other than that, he's been fairly dependable elsewhere. Now, anyway, listen, as a few folk are saying in the comments, the only people that can lose this league for us is ourselves. You touched on it at the start of the show, Liam. You mentioned a wee bit about refereeing, about some of the decisions. And I just want to touch on that. Again, we don't want to flog a dead horse here, but a few things have come up, and some of it's quite interesting, isn't that? You spoke about the totting up system, and you spoke about players that were carrying cards. Now, to my knowledge, Celtic are fairly clear on that front. There's certainly nobody been an excessive amount that look as if we're on the cusp of, losing key players. But if we look across the city, you've obviously got Tav, you've got Goldson, you've got Lundstrom, and there's a few other. I think they've got up to maybe 5 players that fall into that category, that they're on one more card of a yellow is going to be anywhere between, depending on the player, a 1-game suspension or a 2-game suspension. Now, I'm understanding how that pans out, as if that falls into play, it's not immediately the next week. I think it's a 2-week layover. So as we look at these fixtures here and we look at them going up to Dundee, for example, tomorrow, and then, if not happening there, the game against St Mirren. I mean, let's be honest, Tav often caught out of position, Goldson, handball merchant and everything else that goes with it, and Lundstrom, well, he just likes to throw himself about. Is it strange to you guys that none of these guys have been booked, either in the game against us or other, Paddy, we'll start off with yourself. Listen, we always say we're not conspiracy theorists here in CWO, we're just reporting on the facts, and it's quite a good bit of chunk of luck, that, is it not?
Aye, it seems to be. You touched on it. Let's just hope that Dundee and St Mirren kick them up and down the park or cause them a bit of hassle, and they do get another booking, because it would be, do we want Tav and Goldson out, or do we want them to start? The way things are going, and you'd probably rather they started against us.
Well, the thing is certainly I see that in terms of injuries, I heard their manager saying that the options that their fans were crying for on the phone, and as you'll know, Liam, was that they wanted the reinstatement of Balogun or even a Ridvan Yilmaz. Nope, none of them. They're not happening. They're not an option, as is Diamandi is also not an option. So they're going to have to stick with that status quo and walk that tightrope. Do you think they'll come out of it with a clean bill of health? Do you think Stevie McLean's going to have a good, clean game tomorrow night up in Dundee?
I don't know. I mean, as I said, I hope they are pissed off. They've been portrayed as unprofessional, and that will go out, and the players will play the game of whatever they have to do to win, to beat Rangers. And I just hope that's enough for them to go on, go out and get stuck in. Either way, it's win-win for us. It's that I want them. Want Dundee beat up before they play us, and want Rangers to get beat up anyway.
Don't mince your words with that, eh? But see, another thing as well that I thought was interesting, I'm just referring it to here, actually. I've got it saved as a to mention here. We spoke about referees, and a week or so ago, Paddy, you and I done when we spoke about Beaton getting appointed, and the title of that show was that the SFA show their contempt with the Beaton decision and the appointment. And I asked at the time, and I also asked you this as well, Liam. I says, is that a misstep with them putting in it, or is that a deliberate act? Now, another person that was part of the Brendan Rodgers gate, if you want to call it that, was a certain Don Robertson. Is it strange that we find that he's now also in charge of our next game, and that will be, I believe, 3 of our last 4 matches? Is that just a bold 2 fingers up to Celtic? Because usually you get a wee bit of variation in who's refereeing you, do you not?
I don't know. It's almost like you're being handpicked, horses for courses. Does he have a particularly different referee style that somehow lets him manage a Celtic game better than anyone else? Or these are the referees that they are now appointing for games that they think are the most highest profile? That can only be it for him to showing up with a high profile team as a high profile referee. What's the last time we had Kevin Clancy? When's the last time they had Kevin Clancy? Yeah, I mean, Scottish refereeing in general, it does seem like the whole Rodgers thing, everything, especially what's went on with Crawford Allen since he came into Scottish football, and the anomaly of, the data and the significant gulf and, the division between penalties awarded, conceded, and, all that sort of stuff. It's all within that timeline. And so the fact that we're getting Don Robertson after we complained about him, and, I heard 2 referees on this week as well comparing about Hatate diving. Hatate, for a foul he never claimed for. He never got a walk.
That as well. I was quite shocked at that when you consider some of the diving that we've seen lately. Yeah.
And they were wanting that retroactively banned, and I'm thinking, okay, what the fuck's going on here, right? So, I think it's a reaction to Roger picking up. It's something that we got to be very careful with and handle with a bit of contempt as well, like the way it's served up to us. It's like, I don't think we should be Tony Mowbray in it and taking it on the chin. I think we need to speak out, just as they do. But they don't have their manager speak out, or when he does, it's such bullshit the way he talks. Like everything can be deciphered more than one way. But or they have their directors talk about refereeing and stuff. And that's what Mike Nicholson. If you're going to make a comment on refereeing and about the standards and stuff like that, have a Mike Nicholson or something come out. Somebody can get fined, but we don't lose it to the dugout.
No, definitely. Another thing as well, Paddy, that we've touched on is certainly if it's not just about refereeing or the guy that's actually on the field, it's those that are off the field and in control of VAR. It's been a very contentious point, shall we say. And again, not to go down that conspiracy theorist route, I've always been, I've tried to keep my counsel, and I don't really want to get too involved in conspiracies. And I always like to try and speak with a relative amount of, background working, if you will, to a point rather than just throwing something out there. But as much as I've wanted to resist the notion of saying that perhaps referees are, assistant referees, shall I say, VAR referees are re-refereeing the game like they're watching it on TV, where of course that's what VAR's there for, it shows the angles and stuff, but sometimes it feels as if they're almost belying the decisions that are made with their colleagues on the park because it's not what they would have done, rather than something that should be highlighted. There's that notion of when you're out of sight, out of mind, you can have an overarching influence on the game. And an interesting thing that we saw, because a lot of people have been shouting about bias in the VAR situation, was, I don't know if you saw the story in relation to football in Turkey. Did any of you two guys see that?
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on that? I mean, listen, it's pie in the sky, is it not? It's never going to happen here. But I just want your opinion on it from both. You'll start with you, Paddy, about this in Turkish football. For those that aren't aware, there has been complaints of bias towards certain teams by certain referees on VAR, not on the field, on VAR, to the extent where they've looked at it, they've looked at decisions, they've looked at certain referees that have been consistently given questionable decisions to certain teams, and inferring bias. So how are they acting about it? What are they doing, rather than doing what perhaps your SFA are doing and just digging their heels in and making it the same guys? They've went, well, to the end of the season, we will get in external referees. So it's going to be foreign referees on VAR exclusively over in Turkey. What do you think about that, Paddy? Is that a forward-thinking football association there?
Yeah, I think it really is. I take it they haven't went for any Scottish referees, have they?
Why not?
Listen, I think it's a great idea, especially for high-profile games like your Glasgow derbies, things like that. Bringing in a VAR referee for, say, Spain or France or somewhere like that, to have an unbiased view on the match, it certainly can't do us any wrong, because over the last wee while we have, like you said, we've seen the match refereed by somebody in front of a TV and not by the man who's on the pitch. I think Big Ange touched on it as well when you watched his interview for Tottenham, and he said that the referees, when he was playing, were essentially treated with so much respect. If a referee said something, you went, yeah, no problem, sorry, sir.
Yep.
He said the referees don't have that anymore because they're not in charge of the game. There's a guy 10 minutes down the road watching a TV that's in charge of the game. And he said the players know that as well. He says, and that's where it's coming from. So, yeah, to have somebody there who's not going to get involved and not going to be biased towards it, to play the part that VAR is there for, as a video assistant referee, not as a referee, but a video assistant ref. And that to me is the be-all and end-all of it. So I think it's a great shout, especially, like I say, for the high-profile games.
Yeah, it says, it's a bit of an out-the-box bit of thinking here, isn't it, Liam? It says, now listen, I'm not foolish and it's not going to necessarily happen. We've seen it once in Scottish football when the refs went and strike many years ago, and as I recall, it passed without incident. It was actually a very smooth refereeing game. Now, we've spoke about this, previously on the bus. We've spoke about it in general with loads of folk and stuff as well. But just on the refereeing thing, and just to highlight that, firstly, what's your thoughts of what they're doing over in Turkey? And again, how do we improve? Because once this season's out the way, we were told the first season it's going to be teething. We're surely beyond teething issues now, are we not? And let's be honest, whether we like it or not, there's nothing fundamentally wrong with the actual system, albeit we've got the cheapo version of it. It's more to do with the implementation and individuals doing it. Now, do you think that if we want to try and be aggressive, which, let's face it, Scottish football have never been good at, why is there not a reason why that we couldn't have, VAR can be controlled from anywhere? And if we want to improve our referees, we look at how we've got no top-class referees getting any European games and like the likes of the Europa League, the Champions League. And I know that it's different football associations, but could we not maybe look at an option whereby, VAR can be remote? So it's a cross-border thing where you've maybe got two guys that are Championship referees in England, League One referees in England, and they're doing the VAR, and then there's a return, our guys are VAR in maybe a league, a Championship game, or Premier League or something, or at least getting experience and exposure to it. Is there not some way that we can do that and train guys up, increase the sort of quality across the pool, and, British football in general, not just Scottish football? Is there options to sort of weed out this garbage that we're getting served up every week?
Well, I think you said it earlier. You've got to be creative about it. And what Turkey's doing right now is they're looking to a creative solution to the problem. But they're still not thinking as far outside of the box as they need to. I think you need to go farther outside it. And I think what you need to do is just look at what VAR is meant to accomplish and figure out if we've got the best people in the room to accomplish that. And right now, so somewhere in a room outside of the park, so that shows you you can be 30 minutes away in a motor, or you could be 3 hours away, just by satellite, so it doesn't matter where the room is. And so who's in that room? Okay, well, you've got somebody that's watching the game, that's got access to the editing controls that can slow down, speed up, isolate, highlight, all that sort of thing, draw lines, all that. So all that is practical stuff from the audio-visual world. And then here's where I think it falls apart. You've got an ex-referee or a current referee who's outside of the context that everyone he's supposed to be good at. The difference between a referee on the park and the referee in the VAR is one's watching on the screen and the other one's in the real time. You're hearing the contact. You're hearing some of the lip in between the things that, something might be boiling over, somebody's agitated. All those sort of things that you pick up in the park as a referee, you don't pick up in the VAR room. So I think we're making a mistake of putting referees in there. I think what we do is have people that are more like somebody that comes to like Sky TV or something, where you're pulling out all the highlights, you're pulling out replays. You're pulling like Champions League type stuff, like someone that works in the operation of finding what's happening in the game, finding those pivotal areas and motions, and then slowing it down so that people can get a clearer judgment of what actually happened. That's all you really need to provide. And then at that point, if you think it's worth alerting the referee if an infraction has been done, you're not taking it from the emotional sense of a referee who's not on the park and he's trying to fill in all those sensual gaps that are missing because he's now watching it on the screen. I think as well too, when you look at guys like John Beaton and stuff refereeing, I think there's an entire different psychological bias that's forward to the game watching it on the screen, because you're now watching on the screen, you're not watching as a referee. So everything's in you that's familiar and recognisable for the past and all that, is you watching your team playing on TV. And so of course you're going to be cheering for them somehow, because when you're on the field and you're wearing all black and you're referee and all that, most professionals can disengage themselves from that and see themselves, oh aye, but I'm here, I'm doing that, I can separate the two. I think once you add them in front of a screen and all that, I think it's possible for them to start showing a bias that would come from not being on the pitch and that. And so I think that's where we have to go. I think we have to look at, okay, so if we don't have ex-referees in there, who else would be best to have in there? Who do we trust, and who has the ability to find out what the frames are that John Beaton needs to see or whatever? No, the shite where they've cropped it off wrong. All that stuff's, when you see stuff like that, that makes no sense to me. So you need someone that's more got like a television mind. I talk about Phil this on the bus about how Apple is reinventing football in North America. You need to have that sort of approach as well, as to what's better for the products you're selling as well in the TV and all that. Is it having two refs at conflict with each other, or is it really being able to video assist the referee and think more about it from that approach rather than having a backup referee? No. You get rid of I think you get rid of a lot of the bullshit. You've still got your referee, and then there's a VAR guy. They're not the same. They're not the same guys. No,
I think that is quite an interesting take, and I wonder what you think what Liam's just said there, Paddy. Again, are we maybe sort of diluting and losing sight and saying, essentially you need to be a referee, you need to be trained to a certain level, or it can be quite as simple as they're not quite a referee, much in the same way that a linesman isn't quite a referee, but a linesman knows the rules of the game, because that's fundamentally, is it not, all that you are doing? If you're watching VAR, you should be there to enforce the rules of the game. They're black and white, are they not? Obviously, we talk about subjectiveness around handballs, but at the end of the day, there is rules, you've got to follow them. Is there scope for something, or is that just a wee bit too blue sky thinking? And certainly, again, also I want to ask you about what Liam's saying about that notion of when they're sitting there, when they're on VAR, they're essentially watching the game on Sky Sports. Let's be honest and not kid ourselves on. It's just a live feed for the game. Do you think it is possible, as we've seen certainly with Turkey, that sometimes these guys can lose themselves and they are refereeing it through their eyes, through what they see, rather than enforcing the rules?
I think that's a great point Liam touched on. You know what it's like, you always kind of slag your friends and stuff and say, oh, you're watching that with the blue goggles on and stuff. So I think it's a great shout, and yeah, you can see it. You've been brought up watching these games on the TV, and as soon as you see a tackle in that box, you're going, that's a penalty, let's see the replay, slow the replay down, and you're essentially looking for the foul. You touched on another thing there as well, Steve, about bringing somebody in who obviously knows the rules and stuff like that to have a look at it. I think, like you said, you touched on the dubious ones there as well. The penalty. Let's talk about the penalty that the Rangers got the other day there. The ball's headed by one of the opposition players off his own player's hand, who's...
Well, we've seen this a couple of times, haven't we now?
Yards or so away from him.
Yep.
And it hits his hand and the penalty's given. That, in the rule book, states that it's not a penalty. But it's given.
And as we've seen as well with Johnson Tawata, the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Is that concerning to yourself that we're seeing the same? yes, we'll talk about the ones that are quote unquote subjective, but we're fundamentally seeing the same things crop up time and time again. And it is stuff that's in the rule book that, you know, they should at least know. And do you think sometimes that's why we're not, or they're so apprehensive to not have the audio made available to viewers and other people as well, managers or whatever, to hear that thought process? Is it because, not to, maybe I'm being a bit sort of flippant here, that it's kind of like, you know, if sometimes in your work or something, if somebody asks you something and you know what to do, but you don't quite know exactly what it is you should be doing, and it's like, right, I know I need to do this and I'll find out how to do it. Do you think there's a wee bit of that going on where they're kind of doing it on the fly?
I don't know. Hold on a minute. I'm reading the rule book. Why is it a penalty? Because it's Rangers. I don't know what they're saying. But let's be honest. There's so many of these incidents that are happening, and if you do that in your line of work, whatever line of work you're in, you've got to be held accountable. And Brendan's called them out on it. Other managers have called these refs out on it. You're getting called out for having a bad performance at your work, and you've got to learn from it. You've got to, if you make a mistake, you go, sorry guys, I made a mistake there. I'm going to go back and I'm going to read over that part of the rule book and I'm going to come back and I'll make sure I'm better the next time. But these guys aren't learning from it. They're doing it week in, week out.
Yeah.
Same mistakes all the time. And that's where the conspiracy theorists will come in. That's where we go, oh, wait a minute. Another penalty for them. Let's have a look at it. That's not a penalty. The rule book says this. But who's telling them that? Who's going to pull him in? Who's going to pull in your Don Robertson and your Nick Walsh and whatever and say, right, guys, have a look at that. What's wrong with this? Why is this a penalty? Tell me. And I would like that to come out. I'd spoke about that before and said, I would like referees to come out after the game and say, yeah, this was a penalty because of this, or this decision was made because of this. But they don't. We have managers coming on doing their press conference after it. We have our captains, our man of the match and everything doing press conferences. Why don't we have a ref coming out going, yeah, I had this because this, and this? I think it would make it so much easier to understand.
Definitely, you know, I'll finish up, Liam. I'll give you the last word on this, and essentially the last word of the topics for the show. Just again, touching on the referees and things like that. You know, we've sort of, will we ever go over this sort of situation? We've seen shambles upon shambles, and sometimes it's not just about decision making, but we've spoke about, you know, a penalty here, a red card there. These can make massive effects in how things pan out. But there's one before this split that's really significant. And that's Aberdeen, is it not? What did you make of that? They told us that they didn't have the functionality to make the VAR work. They couldn't see it. It was broke. It wasn't there. And instead of going with it on the field, linesman's decision, letting the goal stand, people in a van that haven't even got the ability to properly review it, guessed.
Aye.
Does that? Where else in the world does that happen?
Probably Turkey. But it's like, you know, that one, the Jota one. There was one Anthony Ralston scored as well that got chopped out. I think it was against Hearts. It was a cracker. It just shows you they're making this up as long as they're going along, and that's the thing. Transparency. We need transparency here. The other thing I think we need to do collectively, and this is the last thing I'll say about the refereeing, is I think our entire approach to referees and the referee pool needs fixed. We look at referees right now as generational. You know what I mean? It's like you get that crop of referees who sort of spend 4 or 5 seasons with, or more in some cases. You know, like the Hugh Dallases and you know, the McCurrys and, you know, and all that for back then. It's like you can never get rid of them, no matter how bad they are or how poorly they perform. And I think if you look at football players and football managers, you know, look at Mourinho right now, whose stock has fallen. You know, so if a guy football-wise like Mourinho can be out of touch with football or just fall out the rhythm and the sync of the way modern football is played, so too can referees. And that's sort of creating generational referees that, well, you know, thank God Bobby Madden got a job down south, because he'd have a job for life. And I'm
He
still
got found out, did he not? He got found out fairly quick.
Aye, but I'm still waiting for the heat to come for him to end up back in Scottish football, because this generational class, like Robertson and McLean and all that, that these are the referees, and no matter how poorly they officiate, and they don't have to be held up to scrutiny. They don't have, because we've got nobody else, because they're the best. And I don't think that's necessarily true. I think we need to be coaching and scouting and finding younger referees to come in. And if you get it wrong, you're out. It's none of this sort of thing like playing up to develop into becoming a world-class referees. Because we've seen some of our world-class referees show up in international football and embarrass get out of us with some of their decisions and that. You watch games here in Canada in the World Cup, and it's something they've got a Scottish referee in it when they used to get invited. Some of the decisions were made handballs and stuff like that.
Do you remember the classic European game of Willie Collum? And he created a massive uproar with some very, how will we say it, interesting decisions.
Aye. There was somebody as well that gave somebody a red card in the first 2 minutes as well. One of our referees did that, ran it for something that, Jesus Christ, I mean, it'd be goals in 6 challenge in Scotland, and still not even a talking to. So I think our referees, all they need is transparency. Get it out there, have a conversation with the people, mic them up, come out afterwards. They all want to be stars. Bobby Madden was your first celebrity referee, going on podcasts and all that sort of shit. They're all trying to get into the media game as soon as they release.
It's jobs for the boys.
All being off the ball and all that stuff, talking about that. It's just a new way of doing the sort of like, the boozer circuit and all that stuff. And so if you give them transparency, get them out there and defend their decisions. Sure, one of them in their head thinks they're the next, Colina or something like that.
Yeah, Luigi Colina.
On the cover of FIFA tournaments and that, but we need a different approach, and I don't think we can go with this legacy thing that once you're a Scottish referee, that's you've made it. No, we need to be going through them quicker, because a lot of them proven they don't know the rules of the game, and they're just a personality. They're no longer a competent official. They're there for the fame, the glory.
Absolutely. Well, guys, we've just been over an hour, so I think we'll wrap it up there. There's much to unpack there. Scottish refereeing might be in the dark ages, but Celtic World Order is certainly in the modern times, and we'll be kicking on and we'll be back soon. I just want to once again thank you guys for taking the time out to come. It's been a pleasure as always, Paddy. You're a stalwart now, and Liam, always welcome back. Just before you go, I'm sure, can we see yourself on the Bhoys bus with the Bold film again on Friday night? Is that going to be happening?
I hope so. Yeah, I was just waiting for Phil's email just to see who's up on. But
there you go. As I say, if you want to check out a wee bit more of Liam, listen, anybody watching this is going to know the Bhoys bus. That was my original stomping ground, and a bunch of great guys get your body over there. Because that's what CW is all about. It's all about the collaboration. It's not competition. We talk about Celtic family. We talk about Celtic community, and that's what we're wanting to be doing here, working together with the good guys and putting out good quality content. So hopefully you that have spent the time to sit here and watch it tonight have enjoyed the show. And if you're listening retrospectively again, thank you very much for your support. It is very welcome indeed. And just before I close off, because I need to say it again, remember, our operation is small, so help us get the word out. There's some time for some rapid expansion. Subscribe to the channel, share our content, connect with us on the socials. You'll find that drop below in there. Because as we always say, Paddy, what do we say at the end of every single show? Football without fans is
nothing.
And podcasts without viewers
and
listeners are redundant. Absolutely. So it's been a pleasure. We'll kick on. We've got a game at the weekend. We've got a final to get into. Hopefully there's a slip up midweek and there'll be more fun, happy times to talk about. Whatever you are doing with yourself, have a good night, and we will catch up soon. See you all later, guys. Thanks again.
Hail, boy.